If you're building a model railroad layout, chances are you'll need at least one control panel. Well, today I am building a super easy, nice looking basic control panel on Ron's Trains and Things right now. Hi, I'm Ron of Ron's Trains and Things, and lately I've been working on a project building a hidden staging yard behind the new section of my layout, which includes the need to route trains through that yard from the layout side of the wall. That means that I need a process to route the trains through the yards and throw the various switches for those routes. I need a camera and a monitor so I can see where the trains are. And I need a control panel to control those routes. Well, this is the first in a series of videos on how I complete that entire project. And today I am building a homemade control panel. Now, I don't have any other control panels on my layout. My yard and industrial switches are all hand-thrown, and my mainline switches are thrown with toggle switches that are just mounted to the fascia by each switch. But in this particular case, I need switches with a track plan and indicator lights that can tell me exactly how the routes are lined without being able to see the actual trackage itself. I need a control panel. Now, I know a lot of modelers who build some beautiful, fancy control panels with custom graphics, and they look fantastic, and those are great. That's not what I'm building today. Today, what I am building is a basic, simple control panel that anyone can make. I promise you, you can build one for your needs, for your model railroad, virtually regardless of what your skill level might be. Now, if you'd like to see more model railroad tips, tools, and techniques, be sure to subscribe down below and click the little bell icon so you can catch future videos. But now, let's go build a control panel. This video is brought to you by Midwest Model Railroad. Now with 15,000 square feet and one-day shipping, they truly are your one-stop model railroad shop. MidwestModelRR.com, link in the description. The basic material for this control panel is a piece of 1/8 inch clear acrylic sheet, commonly called plexiglass. Now you can find plexiglass in various sizes at virtually any building materials store. Off camera, I cut the acrylic to size using a fine-tooth band on my bandsaw. You can also cut it with a fine-tooth blade in a variable speed jigsaw. The key is to support your material very well and to cut slowly. Acrylic typically comes with protective plastic on each side. Leave these protective sheets in place until after you're finished cutting the acrylic. Once I had cut the piece, I removed the plastic sheet from the back only. Next, I created the track diagram on the back of the acrylic using masking tape. You can use any masking tape for this, but I didn't want to have to take the time to cut each piece to an exact width, as it takes a lot of time to do so, so I used pre-cut artist's masking tape. This tape comes in a variety of widths, but I used the 1/4 inch wide roll. If you'd like to check out this masking tape, I'll put a link to it in my Amazon pick of the week in the description down below. Be mindful of two things here. First, you are creating the diagram on the back of the acrylic, so you'll need to do it in reverse of what you want to see. Remember, you're currently looking at the back of the panel. Second, bear in mind that this masking tape diagram will dictate how the finished product looks, so neatness really counts. As I placed the tape for the track diagram, I used spacers to make sure that my lines were straight, parallel, and uniform. I cut the tape using a straight edge razor blade, pressing it carefully into the tape with a flat motion, not dragging the blade across the surface and thus cutting into the acrylic. Be sure to press the tape firmly onto the surface of the acrylic so that the paint won't bleed under later. The lines are made permanent by painting the acrylic from the back. This allows the acrylic to create a glossy surface and a look of depth to the control panel. The important factor here is to use paints that are designed to be used with plastics. I use these Rust-Oleum black and white spray paints. Both are flat in finish, but that won't matter because the acrylic will create a glossy look regardless. I painted the back of the control panel with the black paint. As with any rattle can application, I painted the surface with a light coat, let it surface dry, and then gave it a second coat for good coverage without the problem of pooling or running from applying too much paint at once. I let this paint dry thoroughly for several hours before the next step. When the black paint had dried, I carefully removed the masking tape from the acrylic. This left the track diagram in clear on the acrylic. For the best results, pull the masking tape away from the surface slowly and at a sharp backward angle. This will help keep the paint from peeling off of the acrylic. With the tape removed, I took the piece back out and painted the back once again, but this time with white paint. Again, I painted the surface in a couple of coats for best coverage. When that paint had dried, my control panel looked like this. Bear in mind the protective plastic is still attached to the front surface. I used a fine grit sandpaper to remove the paint from the edges and to smooth them down to a glassy look. Next, it was time to drill holes for my switches and indicator lights. I'm powering this routing mechanism with an Arduino, so I used push-button momentary switches and only green lights to indicate where the track was selected. I used a caliper to measure the switches and lights for the hole size. I used a ruler and a Sharpie to mark the placement of the switches and the lights. I then drilled holes in the acrylic over a scrap piece of plywood. The key factor here is to use a regular metal cutting type drill bit and to take your time. Drilling too fast can melt the acrylic. You can help solve this problem by coating the drill bit with a little bit of oil to help keep it cool. Also, getting the bit in a bind can cause the acrylic to crack and separate around the hole. This happened to me in the very first hole that I drilled. Fortunately, this defect was mostly covered up by the switch once I mounted it. I took more time with the other holes and had no more problems. I also drilled holes in the corners of the panel for mounting it to the fascia. With the holes drilled, I could remove the protective plastic from the front surface of the panel. I then mounted the lights and switches in the panel with their accompanying hardware. A couple of the switches were a bit tight, so I filed their holes with a round-edged needle file. In the process of drilling and mounting the hardwares, I got a few small scratches in the paint. I touched these up with simple black and white acrylic paint. Just make sure that you use the black where the black shows on the front and the white where the white shows on the front. Once touched up, I couldn't see these scratches at all from the front of the panel. And with that, my panel was complete. Again, it is a simple panel, nothing really fancy, but it looks nice, it's quite neat, and it's very functional. I'll show you how I installed and wired this control panel in a future video. Now, you can build on this technique to add more elements to your own control panel. You can add more industrial tracks, you can create labels that you put on the back of the plexiglass before you paint it to label the various tracks. You can include more indicator lights and all kinds of other ways that you can modify this design. But this way of making control panels is really easy and frankly comes out looking really nice. Now, as I said earlier, the masking tape that I used for creating my track diagram, as well as the switches and the lights that I used in this project, will all be linked in my Amazon Pick of the Week down in the description below this video. Be sure and check out my MicroMark promo code and other valuable links that are in the description as well. Now, to see the playlist for this entire project and other model railroad content, check out the links on your screen. And be sure and join me on Tuesdays as I bring you even more great model railroad videos. And I look forward to seeing you then. 10, Lizzie?